In 1961, Yale University hired people to take part in an experiment. Those hired thought they were performing the experiment, but they were actually the subjects. The hirees were divided into teachers and learners, and the teachers were supervised by white-coated actors posing as scientists.
The teacher would ask the learner questions in a word game and administer an electric shock when the answer was incorrect. He was told to increase the voltage with each wrong answer.
Shocks range from 15 up to 450 volts, enough to kill a man. The shocks were fake, but the subjects thought they were real.
I can't stand the pain. Let me out of
You
here.
can't stand it. I'm not going to kill that man, eh? I mean, who's going to take the responsibility if anything happens to that gentleman?
I'm responsible for anything that happens here. Continue, please.
All right, next one, slow. 375 volts. I think something's happened to that fellow in there. I don't get no answer. He was hollering with less voltage.
2/3 of the participants administered the full 450 volts when ordered to do so by an authority figure. As the experiment showed, if authority can override our basic morality, it can definitely impact our personal taste. And that's something to be aware of in the influencer age, when everything from cars to cleaning products have influencers. Modern influencers have cultural authority, and that often comes from high subscriber numbers. We used to buy our fragrances by going to the store and sampling them ourselves. When we leave it up to somebody else, to an influencer, we're allowing them to shape our personal choices. That's especially true when it comes to fragrances because there are no pictures. Everything has to be described. And after a while, repetition starts to feel like proof. Here are 8 fragrances that got popular on their own and did not require influencers. Fragrance number 1 was Jean Paul Gaultier Le Male, and this came out in 1995, and it wasn't just pre-influencer, this was pre-internet. Most people did not even have the internet in 1995, and yet this was a phenom. And this got successful. Nothing to do with influencer. They did it the right way. It was based on innovation and risk. And the risk was especially in the bottle. This was hugely controversial when it came out, especially the bulge. Completely new. And even within the Jean Paul Gaultier organization, there were tons of people that did not like it, including Francis Kirkshaw himself. However, you're dealing with Jean Paul Gaultier. He's a fashion designer. He's used to marketing and selling. He's part of the gay community, and he knew that the people in the gay community would really appreciate a bottle like this, and that they wore a lot more fragrances than straight men, and they loved it. And so a lot of people got excited about this. They saw it as very daring and very interesting. People came in, people saw the bottle, they wanted to try it, so they came for the bottle. They stayed for the fragrance, and the fragrance itself is one of those heavy vanilla scents that's really high quality. That was relatively new at the time. There were sweet fragrances around. You came out in 1989. It was sweet, but it's very, very cheap smelling, not the same quality as Le Male. You did also have Calvin Klein's Obsession. Now, this was much higher quality, but this was definitely ambery. It was more resinous sweetness. It wasn't the hardcore vanilla high quality the way this was, so people loved the scent. This blew up. Within a year, it was the #1 selling fragrance in France, and within a couple of years, the #1 selling fragrance in Europe. It's still huge in Europe. It's in the top 10 in a number of European markets. The flankers do better in North America, but yeah, they did it the right way with this fragrance. And with all of the fragrance releases, we're getting like 4,000 and 5,000 every year. It's really hard to get excited about a fragrance product. However, with Le Male, the bottle really created the excitement. Fragrance number 2 is Atkinson's Oud Save the King. And this fragrance got really, really popular, not through influencers, but because it had to. Atkinson's is a house that goes all the way back to 1799. It was dormant for years, and then in 2013, they decided to bring it back, to go for it. So they created Oud Save the King and Oud Save the Queen. Now, it is a British house. That's really important because Oud Save the King is a play on words for God Save the King. So clearly they were going for the British market. 2013 was also really a big year for Oud. That's when Oud Noir from Versace came out. 2011, there were a couple of Oud fragrances as well. So 2011 to 2015, that was hardcore Oud time. They jumped on the Oud craze. However, they knew their audience because, like, it's a British house. They know their people. And so this really isn't a heavy Oud fragrance at all. What it is a lot of sandalwood, suede, and a lot of iris. This actually smells an awful lot like Noir Ombre from Issey Miyake, except with a ton of powder. Noir Ombre is a leather ambery fragrance, and this is exactly the same way. I get the suede, the smooth suede with a lot of powder. It's like a Noir Ombre with a ton of powder, which really fit the British audience, because real oud in large quantities at that time, that would have been too much for them. It really doesn't fit their cultural aesthetic. And so, yeah, it worked like a charm. And so, well, I mean, like I said, it really had to, and it did. So this one was more marketing and a really good scent, and it worked. Fragrance number 3 is Maison Margiela's Jazz Club. This came out in 2013, and it got better slowly over time. This one was not about marketing at all. In fact, when it came out, it was just one of 6 replica fragrances released over a 2-year period. There was nothing special about it other than the fact that it was the first replica fragrance marketed to men, but it certainly didn't take off, and it's just a reputation because the scent is really good. It earned its reputation over time. So at the moment, in terms of sales, it's definitely top 4 from Maison Margiela. It's number 1 in certain markets, not surprisingly. It is number 1 fragrance for men from this line, but it's really the scent that's really good. And this really does kind of smell like a jazz club. There's a boozy rum, you've got that tobacco, and it's mixed with styrax, so it makes it smell like cigars. It's sweet, it's got a little bit of spices to it. I mean, it's not technically niche, but Maison Margiela, if you know the house at all, it's really, really high end. And this is expensive. So it's kind of like a niche fragrance, and with a lot of niche fragrances, they're so expensive, except for things like Aventus and Baccarat Rouge 540, they kind of have to do it on their own. This one did it on its own. Fragrance number 2 is a quiet, modern classic, no explosion, just slowly over time it established its name. This is Prada Luna Rossa Carbon, and this came out in 2017. Now that is definitely post-influencer, but the big boom with influencers happened during COVID. So basically anything 2020 onwards, that was heavily influencer. Prior to that, the influencers were influencing just Fragcom, not the general public. It wasn't until COVID where people were locked down and started learning to blind buy and blind buying via influencers that really occurred. And so this fragrance, actually, I found out about it the old-fashioned way. I actually had a fragrance channel in 2019. I think I had about 10 subscribers. One of my subscribers is based in Montenegro, and I got a text, it's 2 or 3 in the morning, and he had a picture of this, and he said it was amazing. And so I tried it the next day, and about a week later, I ordered it. And so, yeah, it was word of mouth, and I sampled this myself. Now people are buying it in a completely different way. Now, this also was definitely influenced by Dior Sauvage. Dior went to a lot of trouble to find out that women loved Ambroxan on men, and Sauvage got really big, and a couple of different houses kind of borrowed the DNA and put their own personal twist on it. Prada did something that it normally does. It cleaned it up. It made it more gentlemanly. And I think if you're in the market, it's definitely a good way to go. And for me, of that DNA, this one's the best. Fragrance number 5 got really popular because of America. This is Polo Green by Ralph Lauren, and I'm not kidding here. This fragrance is a woody chypre, and this came out in 1978. There were a lot of chypres around. Now, chypre is a French word that means cypress. If you know anything about Cyprus, there's a lot of bush. It's a very green, herbal island in the Mediterranean. And so a lot of them were around. You had Halston Z14, you had Aramis, but this took the chypre DNA and was more in your face. It was louder, like the stereotypical American, right? They used pine, so it was kind of an explosive chypre. There was a lot of like really in your face, and it worked. It worked like a charm. This is an absolutely beautiful fragrance. I think it was second biggest seller in the 1980s behind Dracar Noir, but it's an American house, and I think Carlos Banim is originally from Spain, but he lives in America, and it's got the green money like American money, the gold. Yeah, it's very, very American scent, but America in the best way. Fragrance number 6 came out in 2012, and to this day, it is still absolutely massive. It is Versace Eros. And this fragrance owes its success to one person only, Donatella Versace. She wanted exactly what she got, which was taking something that was kind of similar to the Allure Sport line, which was basically built around something fresh, like citrus or mint, and something warm, like vanilla or tonka. She got that. This has a lot of mint. It's got citrus is mandarin here, but there's a lot of vanilla. So she got the extremes. It's an extreme version. It's like a clubbing scent version of the Allure Sport line. It really doesn't smell anything like the Allure Sport line because vanilla covers everything up, but this was absolutely massive, and it still is. It's everywhere, and it really was Versace's thing. They don't really pay much attention in Versace to their Pour Homme line, but they really care about the Eros line, and that's why Eros has parfums and eau de parfums instead of just the the EDTs that you get with the Pour Homme line. And yeah, that's why it's successful. Fragrance number 7 is definitely a different one because it is a cult fragrance. It's not one that everybody knows about. It's one, though, that came out in 1999, has not been discontinued yet. It is still going. So it's not exactly a huge seller. It just hung in there. This is Rochas Man from the house of Rochas. And if you look, yes, I do think the bottle played a role in the success of the fragrance. And also, if you know the perfumer the way I do, Maurice Roussel, who created Musc Ravageur, one of the most sexual fragrances around, well, there's definitely a connection here. It's definitely going to stand out. But the thing is, look, you can make the bottle look kooky or whatever and get attention, but the fragrance has to work. It's actually really interesting, but in the late 90s, this came out in 1999, sweet coffee fragrances were popular, and that's what this is. But unlike Michael Jordan Legend, which was a sweet coffee fragrance that's gone, this one's still around. It's still going. So it's got a little bit more than just coffee. It's also got a raspberry note, and it's got a little bit of lavender. So a little bit of a grown-up fragrance. This has been watered down quite a bit, though. The performance is annoying, but the scent itself is very, very nice. Yeah, and it's still going. Fragrance number 8 came out in 2006 and stuck around because it is a seasonal classic. It is built for one specific season, and that's been enough to keep it going and make it relatively popular. This is Burberry London. This is a fragrance that everyone says smells like Christmas, even has a nice warm little jacket for Christmas. This is actually real cloth. And, everyone really likes this. I actually wore this on Christmas Day 2 years ago because it's got that reputation. So it's a sweet tobacco fragrance, but it's a resinous sweetness. They use a Popinax. That's the sweetest resin that I'm aware of. Then you got a lot of tobacco, and it's just really, really pleasant. It also helps the fact that it's very inexpensive. They managed to make a fragrance that's 4 hours, and even with reformulations, you still get 4 hours. Reasonable projection, not a ton. But it smells nice. It smells pleasant. So it's popular from Burberry. So anyway, influencers. The Milgram experiment, I think, is really important to be aware of because who knew? That experiment came about because World War II, you had the Nuremberg trials, and so many Germans involved in the Holocaust were saying, I was just following orders. And based on the results of the study, it appears as human beings, we are susceptible to authority. And, when it comes to watching videos online, I know if I see somebody who's got like 1 million subscribers versus 20, I'm much more likely to go watch the 1 million subscriber video. And so that is a form of authority. So just something to be aware of, just a little bit different. But yeah, none of these guys were influencer based. Thanks for watching.